Hello and welcome back to another episode of DCU Daily. And of course, as always, we've got tons of news from the world of the DCU, DC Studios, Elseworlds, all that jazz, right? James Gunn has continued to do a bunch of media appearances, and we're still sort of reeling from all the news from yesterday. So there's a bunch of follow up on that. We're going to talk about Lanterns. We're going to talk about Peacemaker. We also have to talk about, of course, Alan Tudyk, or Alan Tudyk. Sometimes I get his name wrong. But he's gonna be part of the DCU and not just voicing one character, but two, and maybe in live action as well. So we have to talk about that, of course. And then Frank Grillo drops the bomb that he has seen the Superman trailer and it gave him goosebumps. So we're gonna talk about that and see exactly what he said about Derek Cornsweet. He's a big Superman fan, even though he may not like the the guy in the movie or his character doesn't. And then wait till the end of the show because I found a clip on I think HBO just posted it where essentially you hear Colin Farrell's Irish voice, but he's wearing the penguin like full body makeup, and it doesn't click. I'm like, what is going on? It's one of those weird things. And then of course there is the main story that is on the thumbnail that James Gunn is not happy with where the Batman Brave and the Bold script currently is, and he's just saying that we're not really gonna do this movie until I see a script that I like. So let's talk about that, of course. And to do that and so much more, as always, of course, I've got with me John. How are you doing today?
I'm eating, so I'm good.
Yeah. So you're eating good, is what you meant to say. Is that what
I'm
it
eating,
is?
so I'm good.
You're eating,
I
so
have
you're
pretzels.
good. Nice. I was
If you
I
hear
was trying to
crunching
finish a
them,
sandwich before the show started. I'm glad that
meanwhile, I
I
don't
got through
care.
most of
So
it.
I'm just unprofessional as fuck. So
Yeah, you know what? It's okay. It's okay. I'm sure the people don't mind. By the way, if you guys are joining us live, thank you so much for tuning in. Hit that like button while you're here. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, and then the notification bell so you know when we go live, like today. Of course, I want to say hello to Buster Barnes, Michael K, Ron, and we've got Manolo, Calum, JB, Jay. We got a bunch of comments from you we're going to talk about later in the show. Fiona's in the chat. Of course, Ray J is here. And I'm sure there's more of you guys going to be joining as the show goes on. But John, let's get started here, right? So the first piece of news, this is something that sort of came out yesterday, but we didn't really have a chance to touch upon it. So I wanted to kind of go into it a little more detail. Alan Tudyk, who's already, I think he was meant to be playing a couple other roles in the DCU, or at least in
yep.
Creature Commandos, but now we know that he is also voicing Clayface in Creature Commandos. We don't know how big of a role Clayface will have at all in the show, but it's been confirmed. It was as part of, I think it was an interview with either Collider or IGN, where basically, Alan Tudyk, James Gunn, Frank Grillo, a bunch of the other cast members were there, and they were just being asked all these questions, and that's where they kind of gave it away. So my question to you is, A, are you looking forward to seeing Alan Tudyk voice even more characters? And B, just how big of a presence do you think Clayface will have in the animated Creature Commandos? Because I mean, where the character goes from here, we don't know. But like, do you think it's just like a one-off cameo in Creature Commandos?
I think it might be like an episode or two, and that's kind of it. Because I know that there was like a lot of like, as we saw in the second or third trailer, where they were in prison, and we saw like all the monsters, like we saw Congo Bill or Congorilla, and we saw like all these weirder characters. So I can imagine that Clayface is probably there, either there or like they fight him somewhere, and wherever that may be, then fine. So yeah, I can imagine it's like probably an episode or two, and then maybe he shows up in Superman. That's possible, but the thing is, the two roles he plays are Dr. Phosphorus and Clayface, which don't really have like a body. So like you don't have to. So he can like play like more and more characters outside of that, because they're gonna make the change to live action eventually. I mean, Frank Grillo already is, and I assume Amanda Waller. Well, definitely Amanda Waller at some point. But it seems like, because I know that there was the rumor that he was going to be Brainiac in Superman, but or like somebody theorized or fan casting. I
I
forget
would
what
have
it
liked to
was.
see that. That would have been interesting, definitely.
But it seems like he might be Clayface in Superman, because this was like they already said like he was gonna have a secret role. He was cast in Superman, but like I can't imagine Clayface, a Batman villain, being in a Superman movie unless like Frank Grillo. It's like a cold open, and like Frank Grillo as Rick Flag Sr. is talking to him,
Hmm.
and like then it like goes to the real story. But like I feel like that's kind of lame. I think if I were to guess, I think Alan Tudyk would probably play a different role in Superman, and he's just playing a bunch of characters. I mean, he has the range for it, he has the talent for it, so I think that's what's going to happen. But it's awesome that he's playing Clayface. I mean, he's played Clayface before in
I was
the
gonna
Harley
say,
Quinn show, where he plays like
right.
a more comedic, theatrical version of Clayface, like leaning into like Basil Carlo being a theater actor, and I think that works, and I think that's funny. But I'm really curious with how he does it, like in a more serious vein, and I can't imagine he does anything less than a great job, like usual. So yeah, I'm excited for this. I was super happy when I saw this. I'm like, it would be awesome if we saw that in the Brave and the Bold movie. Whenever we do get that, if ever.
I was gonna say, and look, it's not only that, but like we have speculated that maybe we will get Clayface as a villain in the Batman franchise. So I'm not saying you can't have more than one Clayface at the same time, but it just it leads you to wonder. These are all characters, especially in Creature Commandos. They're all like non-human characters, right? So that leads me to believe if he's doing Clayface, that he's probably doing a version of Clayface that as more fantastical, right? JB's like, he does the best Clayface. Yes, I mean he's been voicing him on Harley Quinn. Can't wait to see where he takes the character. Ron in the chat saying, I don't want to be in my 40s when Brave and the Bold comes out. We will get to that conversation soon. But as far as Alan Tudyk, it looks like he's now going to be voicing multiple characters, and there are plans for these actors to then get into live action to play some of these same characters. So I wonder if we're going to get multiple characters in live action played by Alan Tudyk, which, like you mentioned, some of them may still be animated because the characters you just can't, let's do hair and makeup on a human being, so they may just be CGI, so it wouldn't matter so much. But I'm excited to see where this goes and just how much of a presence Alan Tudyk has. This is one of those things where, again, James Gunn being James Gunn, he's gonna bring in the people that he loves, and Alan Tudyk is one of the absolute treasures in Hollywood today, and I'm excited to see that he's an even bigger part of the DCU than we thought he would be. So that's just great news. I just wanted to kind of touch upon that before we moved on to a bunch of other stuff from the world of Green Lanterns, or Lanterns, the TV series. Now, James Gunn has been talking all about this, and he reacted to how he reacted to the people's reactions to Kyle Chandler being cast as Hal Jordan. He talked about like how the series is very grounded and there's a believable approach. He also said that the show is set to come out right around the time the Supergirl comes out. So as far as we know, the two things are not going to be too far apart. And we talked about it yesterday where they might be kind of staggered, maybe by a month or two, which would make sense so that it gives Supergirl enough of a run to kind of make its money, and then people can go from that to watching Lanterns, and the stories might cross over a little bit depending on just how cosmic Lanterns is. But John, there were a few more specific quotes from James Gunn that we're going to get into. Before we do that, I wanted to point out this story from James Hawes, who we mentioned a while ago when they were first starting to get directors and more behind the screen talent. It looks like he's going to be directing a few episodes of Lanterns, right? And he's already on set. He's already on the Warner Brothers lot. So I imagine
Hell
they're
yeah.
building the sets. They're starting to, maybe, I don't know if there's, because it is November, right? Like we're almost in the new year, so they might already be doing rehearsals. They might be going through doing walkthroughs and having production meetings. So it's just exciting to see again that the show is very much alive and well, and they're getting very close to starting production on it, and clearly a bunch of that is going to happen in the Warner Brothers lot in Burbank. So I'm excited for that. And then, I mentioned this. You guys can go and check this out on IGN, where James Gunn really talks about his reaction to, the world hearing about the casting for Lanterns, specifically Kyle Chandler, especially after all the rumors about all those A-listers are going to come in there. So this quote here, John, is the one that I wanted to now ask you a little bit about your reaction, because you are a healthy skeptic of this series so far, primarily because of the talent that's involved behind the screens. Even though you like the cast that they've brought in, you're not necessarily the biggest fans of like Damon Lindelof or Tom King. So James Gunn, he said it at the New York Comic Con. This is another one of those projects that's blessed from the start, and now he has said that it's very grounded, very believable, very real. The kind of things that you would never think that would be the truth about a Green Lantern television series, and very human, adult, and wonderful. So what he's essentially telling us is that this series is going to surprise us in ways that we perhaps don't expect. Now, do you think that's a positive, especially because this is meant to be more of an Earthbound TV series, and these are the Lanterns who are very cosmic characters? So, how do you look at this comment from James Gunn, and do you think this is a good thing or a bad thing?
It could be good, it could be bad. I think human, adult, and wonderful. Like, obviously, I don't want it to be like adult jokes or something like that, where it's just like a bad comedy or something like that. Because like sometimes people mean that when they're talking about it. So I just hope it's just a well-made show for adults. I hope that. I don't know. It's just like I don't like the idea of Green Lanterns being grounded and all that shit. Like, I want to see them fight like all these amazing threats. I hope it reaches that point
Right.
later on, but like the more James Gunn talks about this, like being, oh, it's grounded, it's grounded, it's grounded. It's like like excuse my skepticism, but when you're talking about the grounded nature of the show that much, it's like it's hard for me to believe that they're gonna go cosmic at any point in this series. At least, I don't know if this is a mini series. I don't know if it's season one. Obviously, we'll have to, wait and see. But it's just like I just want to see space cops fighting in space. Is that really too much to ask? I understand like budgets and all that shit, but it's like I just want to see Green Lanterns fighting in space. I don't know why that's so difficult. It's like it's kind of like it's just like the idea of like reinventing the wheel. It's like you don't need to do that. It's like Marvel keep delaying Blade. It's a guy who fights vampires. I don't know what the fuck is so difficult about that. Two guys fight aliens in space. I don't know how that's so difficult. Yes, I understand Earth is part of Sector 2814, but one, there's like 3 or 4 other planets a part of that in addition to Earth. People seem to forget that point. And then they're space cops. If I wanted to watch a cop show, I'll watch The Wire. I'll watch Brooklyn Nine-Nine if I want a comedy. Like if
Nine,
I
yeah.
want to watch space cops, I don't want to watch cops in a Green Lantern show. Like, I don't understand why this is so like you gotta. It's like the movie took place mostly on Earth. I mean, sure, you had a couple scenes
Right.
in Planet, but it's like we already
Well,
got
yeah.
like a bad Green Lantern live action product. Like, why are they really trying so hard to one up themselves? Are they trying to one up the Ryan Reynolds? It's like, oh, you thought that was bad? Well, fucking hold my beer. So I don't know. It's just like I don't think it's gonna be like I don't hate the movie. It's not like the worst thing ever, but it's not that good either.
It's yeah.
But it's just like I don't get um I don't know. I just want something that's like just what I want to see from Green Lanterns. I want to see
Yeah.
like space shit. Like I like space. Space is
I
cool.
look.
Space is unknown. Space is weird and creepy and
No, I
interesting. Like
know.
I want to see that.
Well,
That's what makes me excited about the Supergirl movie. It's like it's a take from even though I don't know any even though it's based on a Tom King story. I haven't read it, so it could be the greatest fucking thing since sliced bread. But I just want to like that is really cool to me because Supergirl is a character that is an outsider on Earth. It's like, okay, let's have her story take place not on Earth. All right, that's pretty ingenious. Like she is like an outsider because she knows of Krypton, she remembers it, and now she's younger than her cousin who was an infant when she last saw him. And then so you have all that, and so it's like, okay, boom, cosmic space story from a character that feels like an outcast on Earth.
I
Awesome. That
I
sounds
I
great.
understand that. I get that completely. But I mean, look, they had like Hugo Millie said, they haven't ruled out the idea that the show can go into space or to other planets. I just think where they're starting with the ancient horror in the American heartland, because rarely when we get a synopsis or a log line, those things they don't really tell you what's gonna happen at the end of the show. We had no idea how the Penguin was gonna end. Fuck the Penguin. But we knew how it was gonna start, where the show was gonna kick off, and similarly, I think all the information we're getting so far is really where the show picks up. Where it leaves us off at, nobody knows, right? Like, because right now we don't really have any official projects announced after Lantern, so we don't know what comes next. I mean, we have a list of things that could come next, but we don't
Mhm.
really know which of those is going to be the next one after Lantern. So I like to believe that they might start off very grounded on Earth, but like there will be opportunities for them to go into more cosmic settings. So yeah, and like Ron was saying, I mean, a lot of that could be in the first episode. So it's just one of those things where the premise sort of dictates that they start on Earth, but then the story could kind of expand from there. Speaking of lanterns, of course, Tom King keeps talking about it. We heard this the other day, and we actually had a nice comment from Jay talking about it because he was like, "Oh man, I almost missed this." Um, and we're gonna get into that comment later, Jay. But of course, we not only have our two lanterns, but we also have Puna Jagannathan, who's meant to be playing a character called goes by the name of Zoe. But the description of her character is meant to sort of kind of describe to us a very powerful woman who's a leader, who's very much there as a figurehead, but we don't really know how the character fits into the story. But again, I guess we're gonna find out because the character is not really from a comic book story. So speaking of which, though, hey, we've got what could be three of our leads in the show, and I think that it's so far Tom King is happy. And it's not so much that Tom King is happy. I'm just happy to see that the show has got, despite the fact that we don't have like a Matthew McConaughey or I don't know, like who was the other big one, or Josh Brolin. The cast that they've got works. I think there's room to grow here, so I'm
Mhm.
happy to see that they've got talent both in front and behind the cameras. We talked about James Hawes earlier, and of course, speaking of Tom King, he was like, "Hey man, look, I got to write Spider-Man once for one panel 10 years ago, nailed it."
Tom
So
Tom
I got a
King's
laugh out
writing
of that.
everybody.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. Well, John, let's kind of pivot over to that Superman news now because we know that there's a Superman trailer that's set to come out soon. If you go off of James Gunn, he's like, it's not too far away. It's coming soon. He's been a little coy about it. We know there's a little more to it than just that because apparently he's not the only one who's seen it because he carries the trailer around on his hard drive seemingly, and he managed to show it to his new DC best friend, which is Rick Flag Senior, Frank Grillo. And Frank Grillo, of course, according to this thing that they were on, what was it, comicbook.com's Phase Hero. That was a show, I think this was from yesterday, and in that appearance James Gunn basically said, "Hey, I didn't just bring Frank Grillo in for Creature Commandos. That was the first thing, but in every draft of Superman, he was there, and he was, I cast him for Peacemaker. He was like, he wanted him across all of these things because to him it didn't make sense that the character would come in as a one-off. He wanted the character to kind of stick around. I think that's been the approach so far, where James Gunn is
He's
having these
like,
characters intermingle across projects."
I bet like James Gunn saw Crossbones get like murdered in fucking Captain America Civil War, and he's just like, and then like obviously when he was chosen, like less than 10 years later, like Frank, buddy, I'll treat you better than the shit fucks across the street, and he's like, bet. Like just like immediately, like you had this character. He wasn't masked in Winter Soldier. He was great in that. He was a great bad guy. And then, like, okay, cool. He's going to be Crossbones in Civil War, gets yeeted in the cold open, and that's all we get. And then it's
It
just
wasn't a
like,
bad fight, but it was, yeah, I do think they kind of threw over
and
the
then
character
James
a
Gunn's
little
like,
bit.
I'm putting him in Creature Commandos. I'm having him in Superman.
Superman,
I'm having him in
Peacemaker.
Peacemaker season 2. We're
Yeah.
gonna fucking run the gamut. It's gonna
Mhm.
be animated TV, live action movie, and live action TV. Now we just need an animated movie, and we're golden. He'll
Yeah.
run the gauntlet, run the spectrum, and James Gunn's like, I'm treating you with respect, Frank. Like let's
Exactly.
fucking go.
Exactly. And you know what? He's not just treating him with respect, on set and all those, media appearances. He has given him a first look at the trailer, and Frank Grillo's reaction was quite a thing to behold. I mean, this is an exclusive from Collider, and then of course, the quotes have made the rounds on the internet. But if you look at what he said, he basically said, "Hey, I wasn't a superhero kid. I wasn't a comic book kid, but the one superhero, and I'm talking about from the TV show, the original TV show, was Superman. To me, he's the ultimate and only superhero, second to maybe no one in a long distance from that is Batman, right? I mean, come on, Frank. Those are the two superheroes I grew up with. But to step on set and no Gunn was at the helm, even the capacity that I was working, was a gift. And I'll tell you something, I hope I
Blessed
don't
from the
get in
start.
trouble for this. And this is where he gets into the comments that the internet is, getting mad about. Well, not mad, but just going crazy over. He said, I got a sneak peek at a little bit of the trailer. And I'm not joking. And I'm not blowing this out of proportion. My skin was hot and I had goosebumps. That's how great it is. So John, what are your thoughts on this? Of course, it looks like Frank Grillo has seen the trailer, and his reaction was goosebumps, man, goosebumps all over. So, like, what does that tell you? Does that mean that he probably just got a sneak peek at a couple of shots of it, and James Gunn was like, "All right, that's all you can see," and he closes his laptop? Or do you think he's seen the whole trailer and he's
It
just
was
being a
never
little
meant for the
coy?
living. Crush. No,
Yeah.
but I think he saw the full trailer because I mean that the way he made it sound is like, oh yeah, no, I saw it. I saw it from beginning to end. I got hot. I got goosebumps. I got hard. I mean, what? But like
What?
Frank
What? I
just
don't think he said
was
that, but okay.
he was he was my boy was excited, like not from this very interesting picture to be like him being like a superhero, a Superman nerd, like I got goosebumps, and then him just like ready to fucking murder somebody with like veins popping out, and it just like just an interesting picture from this account, that's all.
Hmm.
But yeah, that's awesome. Like it just like gives some Superman some of that respect, like just like him being a huge like yeah Superman. He's
Yeah.
second to fucking nobody.
Yeah.
He's
I
number
mean, and he
one.
also gave Batman his respect. He was like, I wasn't really a superhero person, but Batman and Superman were my two,
I
go-to if
mean,
I was,
that's how it is for
I
most
took
people.
that
What
most people,
superheroes do
exactly.
you like?
Yeah.
Superman, Batman, Spider
Batman.
Man. Those are the
They are the
three.
two
So
definitive superheroes. I mean, exactly. And that's
yeah,
where I think, DC's got so much clout already with the wider audience, that's for them to have screwed up as badly as it did for the last decade and a half. A lot of missed opportunities, but nonetheless, I think they're riding the ship. And of course, Frank Grillo was blown away by the trailer. He had goosebumps, and he's saying it's not blowing it out of proportion. His skin was hot, so I guess he was hot. Anyway, you might be right about that, John. But he also complimented David Cornsweet, and this is again, he's been very complimentary of David throughout the whole process of filming the movie, even before they started filming. And now that he, of course, has had that experience, he's seen a little bit of the film put together. He said that, by the way, this kid David Cornsweet, is going to be a superstar. A superstar. He repeats himself for emphasis. He's amazing, as is the rest of the cast in the film, and just James's take on it, I think it's going to be the movie. And I think by that he means it's going to be the movie. So, yeah, I'm excited to see, again, just the praise, because it seems like anybody you talk to about David Cornsweet, nobody has anything but just gushing praise for the man.
why is
And
Superman
that's great.
yelling at me?
I don't know. That's
I like
that
it.
could be part of the reason why he gets arrested. Maybe that's what it is.
But
Yeah.
yeah, it's just like I love how like every person that has worked with this dude is like, oh, he's Superman. Yeah, that makes sense. Like just from his energy, his acting, from everything. Yeah, that just makes it. Could you imagine like
Hmm.
just be that much of like a great fucking human being that like everyone views you as like the greatest fucking superhero of all time? That's pretty awesome. That's
Hmm.
pretty awesome. That gives me a shitload of confidence, you know?
To
Like
me,
I love hearing that.
to me, the best thing about David Cornsweet so far that I keep going back to, and I feel like I've been saying this since we got our first big cast photo where Nathan Fillion took a big selfie on the Warner Brothers lot before they even started filming, was in all of those photos, you can almost never point out where David Cornsweet is because he's a tall dude, so he usually ends up in the back of the photo in all these group shots. But at the same time, he's just like the everyday man. You don't notice him. He's not somebody who necessarily stands out, and part of that maybe has to do with the fact that he's not really as well known yet, so people don't recognize his face as much. But at the same time, he just sort of blends in, which I think is about as central or as spiritually, just grabs hold of who Superman and Clark Kent is as a character, as and that's something that I really really love because I think Henry Cavill stands out in a crowd. I mean, I know that nobody noticed him on Times Square, but I think Henry Cavill today will stand out in a crowd. David Cornsweet, on the other hand, you could miss him,
I mean,
walk by
look
him
at that
5 times.
fucking Gen Z
It's
skibbity Riz fucking no cap haircut that he had on set as Clark Kent. So like they're
you
really
wouldn't be
trying
able
to
to
make
tell.
him look like two separate entities. Like it's crazy. Like maybe it's just the lighting. It's just like the haircut. The glasses are like kind of going down a little bit, but it
Hmm.
looks like he had like jowls in that fucking like picture.
I
And then
don't,
like
dude. The
Superman,
fact
he's
that they
just like
achieved that,
like
it's
prim and proper. I don't know.
yeah, I don't even know if that was a wig or not, but I feel like they did that for real. Like that was just they just styled his hair that way because I remember it was
Yeah.
like a that day he only had that haircut, and then they did the Superman stuff on a different day. But let's keep going here because John, not only do we know that Frank Grillo has seen the trailer, but it looks like there some other people might have already seen a version of the movie. Because James Gunn, most recently, I think we mentioned this on yesterday's show. He was flying over the weekend. He flew over from LA back to Atlanta to continue working on Peacemaker, but of course in LA he's working on post production of Superman. And then this article points out, rightfully so, that a fan asked him on Blue Sky, which is like one of the new social media platforms that's an alternate to X, if you rather not be on there anymore. So a fan on there asked him about like, hey, are you going back? Because he posted that he's going back to Atlanta. Like, are you going back to do some pickup shots for Superman or for post production, or were you in Los Angeles to do pickup shots for Superman or post production reasons? And James Gunn said, post period screening period. So I want to ask you this: do you think he was just screening the movie for himself, or do you think that they were doing like a test screening? Do you think this was a screening with like the studio executives, like show us where the movie stands right now? Like where do you think we are with the film, and how many people in this world do you think have gotten their eyes on the movie right at this point in time?
So both of us know. I mean, I mean, I haven't, unlike you, I haven't been like officially in this tradition, but I've worked on movies,
Right.
and I know how long it takes. Um, so if we're rough estimate, if we're going by how long the movie has been in post production, which is about 4 months, maybe like three and a half. August, September, October, half
Right.
fish of November. And how many more months of post do we have left? We have the rest of November, December, January, February, March, April, May ish, June. It's 7.5 months, but you probably have like a final cut by at least the like May. I would say
Right.
that's probably a safe bet. So let's say the middle of May, so it matches up. That would be like
It
6, 7 months.
right.
So, and it's already been worked on for 3 months. So
I'd
I
imagine.
think,
Yeah.
I think he showed it to himself, maybe a couple of execs, maybe a couple of the cast and crew, probably not a lot, probably not the cast, definitely not the cast. So crew is, I mainly meant crew, but I would say execs, producers. If I were to take a guess, I would say James Gunn, Peter Safran, and a couple of like executives that we like are on the board of directors and like all that shit.
Yeah.
I don't think Zaslav. I think he's like busy tanking Warner Brothers right now, so he's not doing anything.
I mean,
Um,
okay.
he's not
He's on the
watching.
same lot. I mean, he could. Well, actually, I don't know. I don't know if he works out of the Discovery like offices in. I think he's in New York or something. I don't know. But anyway,
Anyway,
yeah.
so if I were to take a bet with how much left, we're about almost halfway done with post. If I were to take a guess, there was probably a screening for himself, Peter Safran, a couple other executives, and if I were to guess, it's probably a rough cut
Right.
with very little, like maybe some VFX.
I
That's
feel like
I would say
yeah.
rough cut. I would say rough cut.
I think that's a fair assessment because at this point in time they've been in post production. You mentioned what was it, like 3 or 4 months has it been, or has it been longer? When did
Like
Fantastic
about
Four
three and a
start
half
filming?
months
3.5 months. Okay, so three
since
and a half
it
months.
stopped.
Right. I think well they definitely must have at this point moved past an assembly cut, which is like the first time you put the movie together, like all the
Yeah, when
pieces.
essentially you just
So
throw shit on a
throw shit on a
timeline
timeline and just
and
look at a
that's
very
it.
loose cut. So I bet you they're now probably a few rough cuts into the process, and like you
Yeah.
said, they may have maybe a couple VFX shots that are finished. Most of them might still be very roughed out,
Maybe like
or
10%.
yeah,
I'm gonna say
a lot
10%,
of the
maybe
exactly yeah.
25%, but
It's
that's
it
being lenient.
yeah, and to that end,
Um,
like the sound and the mute, like definitely the soundtrack is not in there yet. That's one of
that
the
the
last
definitely a
things you
temp
have.
track, like a temp track,
Right,
yeah.
exactly. I
John
bet you
Murphy
like
is probably still working on
yeah.
shit for the music.
Exactly, and then, a lot of the actors are probably still doing ADR work, for the movie.
Yeah,
So, like, that's
ADR
probably still
work,
ongoing. So,
a lot of VFX, a lot
yeah.
of make like I'm
Well,
sure
sound
like I'm sure
design
sound
and
design like
SFX,
Foley if they do that
Foley, all of
still.
that stuff. Yeah.
But it's like essentially a rough cut because yeah, as you said, I always forget about the assembly cut. Yes, you're right. The assembly cut,
Yeah.
that where it's like pretty much like cut all the stuff that where you hear cut bloopers, that kind of shit, like just
Yeah.
the movie in its entirety, pretty much how it's written. And then rough cut is the next thing. So I would say rough cut, maybe a first cut where it's like maybe there's a couple deleted scenes that like but deleted scenes that won't be like on like a physical media release, like stuff that will never see the light of day, like stuff that doesn't even matter. But I think that's where they're at now, like a very very
Right.
if like screening is a very 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 rough cut, maybe a first cut with like trimming.
Right.
So depending on how big the script is, I would imagine like with how James Gunn does it, I'll take a guess in terms of if we're script only. I'm not talking about a final cut time, and I'm not talking about a final time. I'm talking about like what I think like the script to time is. I would say maybe like 2.5 hours, like
That feels fair,
maybe
but
like
like
2 hours 40 minutes, like and
right.
AKA like a 160-page script
Yeah.
becoming that.
But
So
here's the thing: scripts evolve and
oh
change
yeah,
over the course of filming, and in post
I mean
production, they
that's
may
why you have
decide to
like a
cut things
shooting
out.
script, like you have a script
Exactly.
like rough cut, and then you have
Absolutely.
like a shooting script. In
Yes.
fact, I actually
So
have a couple shooting scripts. This is
those are
what a
always
shooting
fun to get
script
a hold
is.
of because you get all
Yeah.
the written
I
notes
have
and
3 of them
everything.
because
It's
I had to
fun.
buy them
Yeah.
for college,
Yeah.
and this one is, for Sideways, this is what pretty much was in there. Obviously, there's some tweaks here and there,
Yeah.
but this one is about hang on, it's about 135
Yeah.
pages, so I don't know how long the movie is. It's, like, about roughly
Maybe 2
2
hours
a
or
little bit
so.
over 2
Yeah.
hours, but, yeah,
Yeah.
that's essentially this is and it specifically says the shooting script on the side. I also have the one for American Beauty and Juno. So
Yeah.
I was like learning how to, this was references, and I couldn't. I didn't want to get rid of them because it's like I don't know. These are like kind of good to have.
Yeah.
Like kind of for
Right. No,
format and all
absolutely.
that
It's
stuff.
it's
So
good. It's good to know. I mean, having been through this process of like working on a movie where you have a script and then you end up with a shooting script. Like I've literally crossed things off and changed
yeah.
things up, written notes on the sides, written new dialogue
And
for the actors on the
even
spot.
well, some
So
messier productions don't even have a script, like Gladiator or
I
Iron
mean,
Man, where they
Rebecca
would just were
Ferguson.
like on the
Yeah.
seat of their pants. But that's the
Yes.
exception, not the rule.
Yes.
So
And Rebecca Ferguson famously would say like, "Oh, these Mission Impossible movies, they don't really have scripts. Like it's just you just go from one thing to the next and then you just piece them together." And so it's definitely a thing. But as far as James Gunn goes, his approach is you have a script that he loves, and then you take that and you make a a movie out of it. Now, speaking of scripts that James Gunn loves, there's one script that he's not at all, all that much, in love with right now, at least, which is, of course, the script for Batman: The Brave and the Bold, the DCE, the not the DCEU, but the DCU introduction of the Dark Knight. Of course, we have the Batman franchise with Matt Reeves and Robert Pattinson, but we're supposed to get a Batman in the new DCU, and that Batman franchise. We know Andy Muschietti had signed on to direct the first movie, which
Shame.
will have Damian Wayne in it, but so far it looks like James Gunn is not impressed with the script that they have or the story, and he's saying that basically until we have a screenplay that I'm totally happy with, that movie is not going to get made. At the end of the day, if you're happy with the story that we're telling, that's what matters most. So again, he continues to emphasize that the story comes first, and that's their approach, and they're gonna get it right before they put a script into production. So
Hmm.
I wanted to get your opinion on this, because we know that the writer of the Andy Muschietti is directing, but he's not writing the script. And then of course Andy Muschietti has been busy with Welcome to Derry, which I think is now done filming and is about to come out. So I imagine that the next thing on his slate is going to be Batman: Brave and the Bold. I just wonder, like, is he gonna have to wait around till the script is ready and James Gunn says this is good to go? Because it seems like right now this movie doesn't even have a green light. So where do you think this movie stands, and what are your thoughts on James Gunn's quote here from Collider?
I mean, it kind of just doubling down on what he has said many times before. He's like, we're not going to greenlight a movie until, or a TV show until we get a good script, until we get a good writer's room, whatever the case is, depending on the product. Um, but I think what, yeah, I think that's just doubling down. But it seems as though what it seems like, if I were to take a guess, he's like, until we have a screenplay that I'm totally happy with. Now we could be having a multitude of different writers that are,
That are
trying to
pitching.
submit scripts.
Right, exactly.
So that's the thing I'm curious about. Like, I don't know if it's just obviously it could just be like multiple drafts from one guy, but
Hmm.
I feel like that's a recipe for disaster. Like, you could have like
Well, because
20 drafts, and that usually when we
yeah.
reach double digits for a draft, that's usually an issue.
Well,
Um,
we don't. The thing is,
let's
we
hope
it
not.
never quite had an official name for who's writing the script. So to
Right.
your point, like Antonio also saying, there was a rumor that the Alien Romulus writer is also writing the script for this
I
movie.
hope not, because I hate the Alien Romulus writer. So, you know,
um,
let's hope not.
yeah, but still, like, JB saying it's not, if he's not happy with that, it's good news to him. It shows standards. I mean, hey, look,
Yeah, exactly.
as long as it doesn't take him like 2 through 3 years to make this happen, like for example with Matt Reeves, who seemingly needs all the time in the world and the script is still not done, where Jake Kelly's like pants and may hit his 50s waiting on Reeves.
Because I
I
made a
think,
joke earlier in the chat, because he's like, I don't want to wait till I'm 40 for Brave and the Bold to come out. Well, Robert Pattinson is gonna he's gonna hit 40 when
yeah,
the Batman Part 2 comes out.
come
So,
exactly.
and he's
Yeah,
still supposed to be the young Batman. So, like, oopsie daisy.
Michael's coming after you in the chat, by the way. I'll put this
Yeah, I
comment
know.
on
I
the
saw.
screen.
Be quiet, John. No, I'm not gonna be quiet. You know why? Because this is our fucking show, and I could talk however the fuck I want. So, how about that?
Yeah, Michael coming like, yeah, we're gonna
I
tone it
mean,
down a little
here's
bit.
the
It's
thing.
all friendly banter.
Here's the thing, though.
Um,
Here's the thing. Andy Muschietti also said, like, during the press, like, we haven't heard a statement from him post Flash, like, press
No, not much. He
is,
just said I went to this next project and didn't do any
and
press
so, like,
after.
who knows on what he actually thought of the movie? Obviously, during the press release, you're gonna have to, like, zhuzh up the movie. You're gonna have to, like, gas it up, like, oh yeah, this is the greatest fucking thing ever. It's just the way he talked about it, like, oh yeah, the effects are supposed to look bad, and Ezra Miller's the greatest fucking actor who's ever been conceived by humans, and like there was a lot of that talk I didn't like. So there was, I mean, there is the possibility that there was like he had like this movie went through like 100 different writers, 100 different directors. No matter who, you are right that
Well, that
no
happened to
matter
the
who they got,
Flash.
it was
They had
gonna
so many
suck.
scripts, right?
And adapting
Yeah.
Flashpoint was like pretty much a DOA choice, because it was stupid for the Flash's first movie to be a fucking Flashpoint adaptation, even though it barely was that. But that's beside the point. I think Andy Muschietti isn't totally at fault, but at the end of the day, he still did direct the movie. Whether he, whether he had the guiding hand of whatever fucking WB exec was there that week, fucking CEO was there that week, and that. But at the end of the day, there is some fault in regards to Andy Muschietti, and considering the fact that 33% of the movies he directed were considered good by the public is also a bit not great as well. So there's that. So like I am skeptical about it. I just hope that we get like a really fucking amazing writer. Like John Logan was rumored way back when. I hope so, because John Logan is a fantastic writer, and I think he could definitely make like something like Batman work. But I think Michael Green could also do a really good job. He would be awesome. So whoever they do decide, I think James Vanderbilt could be a good Batman writer.
Yeah.
But any one of them I think could be good, and whoever they do get, I just hope he's good, who could like make up for Andy Muschietti's lack of direction, if
I mean,
that is the case.
I have a name that probably makes no sense whatsoever. In fact, I know it makes no sense whatsoever. But like, I want to see if like Aaron Sorkin wants to take on a movie
Oh
like the
God,
Batman,
no.
because he's a name that
That pretentious twat doesn't want to work on a fucking superhero movie. Come on now.
That's exactly what I'm saying. But I'm like, the dude is talented. He writes he writes great dialogue. That's his strength. I'm not saying that's what the Batman movie needs to be.
Right.
But also, I mean, hey, there's still that Ben Affleck script lying around somewhere. And even if Ben Affleck doesn't get to take part in it, maybe they can dust it off the shelf and be like, hey, like that's. I mean, look, and they want to adapt the whole, Damian Wayne story, so I get it, I get that. But what I think is going on is they've got a script here which currently is not in a decent shape. Like James Gunn looked at the script and he says, hey, this thing is okay, but it's not quite there yet. Like I don't think it's the situation where they're still taking pitches, because they wouldn't have announced the project and then attached a director to it if they didn't already have some sense of an idea of like a script that because here's the thing, they sort of know where all these pieces will line up. They just need somebody to put the script together that sort of like makes it all hum and and sing. So to that end, I mean, while James Gunn described the Supergirl script process as Anna Noguera came to them with a really really wonderful idea, then wrote up a script, and they absolutely loved both the pitch and the script. And he has said as much that while they don't really take open pitches from even successful writers, they usually come up with a concept and then go look out in Hollywood for writers who are established, who may be willing to kind of like work on a story, and then they might take a pitch that is very specific to the concept that they're working on. So to that end, given how long it's been since this was announced, I have a feeling that they already have a writer attached and working. We just haven't heard who that is. And
or writers, possibly.
Or writers, right? There could be a pair of writers, there could be one writer, but really, I think all this says is the current version of the script is not one that James Gunn is happy with, and he wants it to, be continued to worked upon so that they can improve it. And so, the movie won't get made, it won't get greenlit. The same goes for all the TV series and as well, like the Lantern show, right? Like it only got greenlit when they thought they had some great scripts for a series worth of episodes. So now the same process is happening with the Batman Brave and the Bold. And to be honest, the Batman 2 comes out 2026. So the earliest this movie needs to come out is 2027, right? Because you're not going to put out two Batman movies in the same year. So it's not like they need to have this script done by the end of the year or by next summer. I mean, maybe by next summer they want to get it done so they start pre-production, but even if they waited till the end of next year, they still have a whole year and a half, because I imagine, given the history of Batman movies from Warner Brothers, they usually come out somewhere between July and August, right? Like June, July, August. Like literally, Batman movies are usually the anchor for the studio in the summer months. So I would imagine that the next time we get release dates for new projects with the DCU, especially ones that have already been announced, Batman Brave and the Bold is probably going to be the first thing we hear about after Lanterns comes out in 2026. We're going to get the Batman movie in 2027, and it's most likely going to be in the summer months. So with that in mind, they've got a year or so. I mean, they're not in the same situation as Matt Reeves, where they're supposed to start filming next year and James Gunn's saying that the script isn't done yet. That's something completely different. That's something that you would be worried about. That's the one thing where you're like, are you going to go into production without a finished script? This, on the other hand, I think is a little more like tame. I think it's okay. By the way,
Yeah.
Michael K in the chat's responding to your, your
Yeah.
response to him. He said, "Sure, John. Yeah, like you're right all the time. Same with lanterns. Not because Gunn knows what he is doing. You don't know half the time. You're same with lanterns and you with Batman." Dude, Michael's
I
coming after
mean,
you.
I'm
He
just
is
gonna
coming
say
after you.
this. I know I'm not right all the time. I'm just saying my opinion. Like, this is literally an opinion. I mean, we're letting you know what the facts are and then giving our
Yeah,
opinions on them. So
that's
if you
true.
don't like that, the fucking door is right there. If you don't like how I fucking talk about this shit, then you don't gotta fucking
It's
listen.
okay.
Like,
It's okay.
I'm giving my opinion. I'm giving what I know and what I have seen and what I've heard, and trying to give you something like, okay, here's theorizing. If I'm wrong, I'll eat crow. If I'm right, I'm going to laugh at your ass. So, it's just, now I'm kind of hoping Lantern sucks. Then I'll just be like, I told all of you. I told you so. So,
John holds
I mean,
grudges, guys. He really
I
does.
am a grudge master. So, I'm like that Robert De Niro. What's that boxing movie with Robert De Niro and what was it, Mickey Rourke or something? Where they were like the old guys fucking
Oh,
fighting a grudge match,
oh, yeah, the
whatever the
grudge
hell that
match.
was.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yep, yep. By the way, we also
So
got Tony in the chat. We got more Katna. Hello to all of you guys. We have everybody in the house today. Caleb, Antonio, Buster, the Watcher just logged in. Of course, Marco's here. He's saying I believe it will be grounded in terms of the theme. I think you can have a grounded Batman movie that still has
yeah,
fantastical elements, right? We have already seen that, like, because if you're bringing in like the League of Shadows or the League of Assassins, like there's already some fantastical nature to just the fact that who they are, right? So with that, you could still have a Batman that feels like it's grounded in a gritty Gotham City, but you can still then have like magical elements and other things of that nature. So I'm okay with that. And by the way, the Watcher and a couple of you guys also in the chat pointed out that there's a rumor floating around that Daniel Craig might be playing Sergeant Rock, and Batman is a rumor to appear in Creature Commandos. We are going to address the Daniel Craig rumor more closely tomorrow with a little more information. But I think for the
yeah.
most part that rumor is just a rumor. It just happens to be that Luca Guadagnino, I forget how you pronounce his last name, but they just worked on a movie together, and then Luca said I want to work on a DC film, and then Daniel Craig was his most recent leading man, so that's probably where that comes from. As far as Batman being in Creature Commandos, that rumor is just a rumor. I don't believe it's true. I mean, unless it's a spoiler that somebody put out, somebody who's already seen the episodes, which is unlikely, because James Gunn would clamp that shit down real hard. So I don't imagine that's going to be the case. You're not going to see a character as big as Batman debut in animation form on a streaming service with the new DCU. They're going to make sure the first time you see Batman in the DCU is in the movies on the big screen. And that script, of course, it looks like it's still a work in progress, and James Gunn is not quite ready to give it the green light that it needs before Andy Muschietti can get on set and start working and casting the actors. There's a lot of stuff that still needs to happen before we get to that point. But John, I did want to get into this other comment from James Gunn in the meantime. He's keeps being asked about like what's comic accurate and what his philosophy on that is, and I thought it was a little interesting how he answered this question, because of course yesterday we were talking about how in Peacemaker everything is canon from season one minus the Justice League cameo, which they will address in some, I'm sure weird, funky way in season two. But of course, the DCEU Justice League is not part of the DCU. So he
Mm-hmm.
continues to be asked about like what is comic accurate, and people are sort of giving him his opinion. Now James Gunn chimed in on the matter, and he said, "I don't think it means in current canon, as all of these characters have their up years and down years and not always at the same time. So we know there's many different iterations of Superman and Batman out there. Currently, the Absolute series running in DC. There's a New 52, the Rebirth, right? So, and for some characters, the New 52 was the best time for them. Other characters, Rebirth was good for them. So James Gunn continues to say, I don't think current readers should be weighed 100% or weighted 100% and lifelong readers weighted 0%. Things evolve. Also, the DCU is a different universe than the DC comics. This to me is great because this is the same thing that Kevin Feige says, that the Marvel comics are different from the MCU. You can't really like draw a parallel because the stories and the characters are not the same, and one does not depend on the other necessarily. They can draw inspiration from one or the other, but they don't need to be like connected. And James Gunn saying exactly the same thing here for the DC comics and the DCU. And then he's saying just as Black Label is different from mainstream continuity, comic comics accurate, quote unquote, to me means staying true to the nature of the character, which is obviously subjective. So every adapter, as in like let's say Andy Muschietti directing Batman Brave and the Bold, can only do his or her best. What do you think about the philosophy again that James Gunn has? Which to me a lot of that seems like common sense, but if you are a fan of the comics and you really want to get a very specific version of the character in live action and you don't, we have all been in that position where we're like, yeah, no, this was not the character that I wanted to see in a movie theater. But James Gunn is like, it's the two are not the same.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on this? Again, just the approach James Gunn had.
So I try to view it as like, because there's so much history in regards to every fucking character. Like, it's in terms of every popular character that is. So, um, when like in terms of the facts, like technically, if we go by that logic, every iteration has been correct because you could probably find one comic that feeds into that iteration. Like even for Zack Snyder's iteration of characters, you could probably find comics that are like that. Like a friend of mine, well, he's no longer a friend of mine, but he always like fucking propagates like, oh, it's well, the Zack Snyder version was based on the Man of Steel, John Byrne version. And he was based on Secret Origin and all this other shit. So it's like, yeah, that's technically right, but does that make it good? Not necessarily, because it can be twisted and fucked up and not written well, which is what the Zack Snyder's iterations are. But you could like every single so comic accurate is like I feel like when it comes to comic accuracy, I feel like the core of the character when it comes to the wider range of how it's viewed by most people. Um yeah, it's and as well as like the appearance a little bit. Like, oh, I want to see a comic accurate too. Like, I think that's fair. Like, I want to see like I'd love to see the Brave and the Bold version go back to like what the old school like blue and gray was, kind of like during those like Danny O'Neill years. But I think anything would be right. And I just think it's really I just think when it comes to comic book accuracy, it doesn't need to like be the be all and end all because sometimes you can get like really good comic accurate stories, but also get stories that are not at all comic accurate and they're still really good, like the
Yep.
Penguin. Like the
Right.
Penguin barely
Or
follows
even,
comic
dude,
book
one of the
accuracy,
best.
and that's
Yeah.
excellent.
Yeah.
And but you could like totally adapt 100% a comic book and it'd be terrible.
Yep.
Like, you know, I can't think of one, but X-Men: The Last Stand, that fucking followed a lot of things from the comics to a T, but that movie sucked because you're following like three different comic book storylines in
Right.
one movie.
Kind of like in Batman
So
versus Superman, where they did like the death of Superman, they did the Doomsday story, and of course
Doomsday,
they had
like Death,
it
Death
was
of Superman, Dark Knight Returns,
yep.
just like they did a whole bunch of, you
It,
know,
it was it
they
was
did a
just
whole
it's
bunch of
too much going on,
wrong
too much going
wrong
on.
things with that movie.
Um,
But
that was
I,
probably
I
two movies worth of stuff in one movie. But
I
again, go
think the
ahead. Go ahead.
characters is like the core of the characters and how it's viewed by most people. I think that's where you really need
Yeah.
to go. So when you have Superman being like kind of a bit of a mope, it's not that's not how he's viewed in like the like public eye by most people. So I think try to keep that in mind. And I think you should be okay. See what the fans want to see because that's important, but also put your own flair on it. Because as I said this, I think sometime last week, got to have it at like that perfect balance of like what the fans want to see, but also having your vision. Because if you do 100% what the fans want to see, it won't make sense. If you want to do 100% your vision, well, then you're disregarding the people that like fund your movies essentially. So that give you their money to help you,
Yeah,
continue
the
this
studio executives they want to make sure
vision
that this
you
movie
have.
can make money. I mean, I think
So
I personally like to me, I'm like as a filmmaker, do what you think is best because that's why you got
yeah,
hired to do his job, right? And then generally speaking, you're not gonna, and you're not going to satisfy every fan. but as long as you can get the majority of them, and as long as you can get the average moviegoer, the people who are not necessarily reading all the comics and watching shows like DCU Daily, that's the key, right? Because a movie that could be very comic book accurate and completely suck and crap the bed, but then a movie like The Dark Knight comes out where they have inspirations, but it does not directly adapt really any particular comic book. It's considered the greatest comic movie of all time. Of course, you have an example of Logan, which was very close. It followed the storyline of the comic fairly closely, and that was also one of the best comic book movies of all time. So you can do it both ways. I think it doesn't need to be that you have to be very comic book accurate, or you have to be completely on the other end of the spectrum and not do anything that's related to the comics. We've just been getting the Penguin, like you mentioned, fuck the Penguin, in the Batman franchise, which of course is very different from the comic book iteration. His origin is different, his the look is different, but still it feels like a definitive version of the Penguin because of how well it's written. So there's always examples of this, and I think like James Gunn said, every adapter can only do his or her best, right?
Hmm.
Ron saying regarding comic book character designs, it depends on the character. Right,
Right.
exactly. I think the designs could kind of vary, and I'm okay with that if they're not always the same. We were talking about the Captain America suit earlier this week and how we're gonna get maybe two or three different versions of it in the movie that's coming out next year. Every time there's a new Batman, iteration, we get new suits. The new Superman suit we've talked about, at at large, so long. And Hugo, you're right. Old Man Logan was a bit different. Yes, it was. But I'm saying, like, compared to The Dark Knight, it was closer to the source material in terms of how the story plays out. So to that end, I'm saying, like, as an example, it works, right? Um, and the Watcher saying that they changed the suit because of the merch. Right, exactly. They want to sell. That's the business side of it. They want to sell merchandise. So whether it's Halloween costumes or action figures, the suit will change because of that. Now, John, we were talking about just James Gunn here addressing the whole what's comic book accurate, what's canon. Speaking of canon, he was talking about this yesterday about how most of Peacemaker season one is canon except for the Justice League cameo. Now James Gunn is still filming season two of Peacemaker, and of course yesterday we had a set of photos from Tim
Yeah,
Meadows,
yeah, I remember
but
seeing this, mentioning it. Yeah.
and then now James Gunn also posted about it, thanking all the students from the high school. I think they called them what, the Chi Nation, who visited the Peacemaker set, and it was a joy hosting them. It looks like they were just a set visit; they weren't really part of like the extras or anything. But I'm excited to see again that they're continuing to film this. It looks like they're almost at the end. But what are your thoughts on again James Gunn just multitasking across both coasts at the same time, seemingly?
Yeah.
To the point
Uh
like people are giving him gifts in his hotel showers.
yeah. I think that's funny.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's seems fun, looks fun. I'm glad we're like getting all this stuff and developments. It just, it's all it all
yeah,
seems to be going to plan.
yeah, yeah. James Gunn is cooking, as you guys like to say in the chat, or let James Gunn cook. Which I think there's a fun meme that, or is a GIF with he's like this and where there's fire behind him. I do like that one. Um, the Duck of Peace, Caleb says. I would love to see this pop up in Peacemaker somewhere because they're still filming. So I'm like, there's an opportunity that you can have this be like in the background on like Peacemaker's desk or something. I would love to see that at some point. Um, and Buster's like famous rich people getting things for free. Shake my head. I mean, it's a gift. It's from probably a fan. Like whether it's like James Gunn said, somebody from the Georgia Film Commission, or maybe it's somebody from the locations team. It's really cute though. It's another one of those like set gift, the wrap gifts. It seems like or something to that effect, essentially. And now, of course, we all want our own rubber duckies. Our own ducks of peace, as it's been labeled in the chat. Who said that? Caleb said it. Caleb said it. Or Duckley. Duckley, that's a good one, Buster. I like that one too. Duckley could be a good name. Let us know what you guys think we could name this, cute rubber ducky that I'm sure somebody out there, some fan is gonna reproduce, and then it's gonna be at a Comic Con somewhere. So
Oh yeah.
yeah, that's definitely gonna happen. But we of course are not done yet because there was a photo from the set of Peacemaker that I found to be very, very interesting. Of course, we know Big Belly Burger is going to be featured in Superman. We saw it on the set in Cleveland, but we now also see it here in Peacemaker, which they're filming in Georgia and Atlanta. So, John, are you excited to see the Big Belly Burger make yet
Yeah,
another
I
appearance in
I
the
love
DCU?
seeing, Big Belly Burger and all that shit. Like it just, it just it's fun and cute and awesome to see. It was in the Arrowverse. I'm like, okay, cool. And then you know, you have like now it's here, and I don't know. It's nice to see. Just like cute little things like this, like bringing out the world more, and it definitely seems like it's like the Burger King adjacent because the color scheme is this similar, and like the logo is very similar.
I was
So,
gonna say it looks very similar to like the Burger King logo, not maybe the current one, but like a version of the Burger King
yeah,
logo. Yeah, yeah,
not very because it's a comedy, so it's
yeah.
probably
A Ducky McDuckface, Buster Barnes says. That's a good one too. That might be the best one so far. Ducky McDuckface. I think that worked. That's probably a name that Vigilante would give it. Hey man, pass me Ducky McDuckface or something.
yeah, like Bodie McBoatface.
Yeah. And Big Belly Burger, it seems like it is going to be the glue that holds the DC together by clogging up all the arteries of all the superheroes in this universe. But
Yeah.
um,
Or we could call it Duckily because it's like eagly. Duckily? I
Duckley.
don't know.
No, okay. Who said that in it? Buster also said Duckley earlier, so that's. Oh yeah, and
Yeah.
then there's also they got those Choco cookies. So between the Choco cookies and the
Yeah,
Big
the
Belly
Chocos
Burger,
from the Oreos,
it's
and I think there's another
yeah.
DC brand that's in there somewhere, but I forget which one.
I
I
just
don't know. The
remember
only
those
one I can think of
photos
is
were
Applewood cigarettes, and
yeah.
that's Quentin Tarantino. So
Yeah. But hey, James Gunn also again he's been making all these appearances, talking to Collider, talking to IGN, and he was asked in that Collider interviews about kind of his approach to the DCU in general, and I thought this would be one of the nicer quotes to potentially get. We're not ending the show just yet, but we were getting close to the end, and I thought this was a nice way to kind of wrap up the day's news. James Gunn says, "I'm a great believer that if you tell good, authentic stories, if a movie does well or not, if you keep with that same philosophy, that you're going to build a universe that people are going to love and want to be a part of for a long time."
which is
Essentially,
very
he's
nice.
saying
Now, if
good,
that'll
authentic
make
stories
money,
work.
who knows? But because having money and having fan praise is two different things.
Yeah.
Sometimes they go hand in hand, sometimes they do not. So we'll see. I appreciate that. Like he's trying to focus on like the quality of it all.
Hmm.
So that's nice to see, and it's kind of doubling down on what we've seen before. So Jesus Christ. Um, but I think that's really awesome, and kind of the vibe we've been getting so far, and it's very lovely, very very lovely. But who knows if that's gonna make money? We'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah, I mean, I think that was part of the prompt, and James Gunn sort of kind of didn't address the question at all, and he just kind of sidestepped it and was like, I believe in telling authentic great stories, and that's what people are going to love. And basically he's implying that because people will love it, people will go see it. And you know what, hey, right now we don't have a single project out yet. We are about to get Creature Commandos. We won't be able to get a box office number for that, but Superman is only what, like 6.5 months, 7 months roughly away now, so we're getting close. um Caleb saying, "Eat Cracker Jack, mother quacker," or "Peace the duck," according to the Watcher. I can't believe that's become a thing now. Okay, so all these names are really really fun. We should like save these somewhere. I feel like because these are all great examples. Because I think one of these could be trademarked, and then we can come up with our own version, and that could be in our merchandise store on the channel. I would love to see that. But Buster saying exactly, this is great to hear from Gunn. They shouldn't
Mhm.
expect instant success. It will take a few projects to get the audience back, and I agree with you. I agree with you. I think that's the right way to go about it.
That's why I think
Michael
it's
is
like
still
kind of.
coming after you, John. I'm sorry,
Yeah, I'm
man.
like, just bro, do you ever like fucking stop talking? Like you don't have to, keep typing. You can not do that. You could just like keep your comments to yourself. That's what probably every person that has ever met you has wanted you to do,
Okay.
but like, just you can always be quiet. Like I know that's crazy to you, but I'm just saying. That's why I liked how Cruiser Commandos is technically the appetizer, because
Hmm.
it's like you really get the vibe for what we're gonna be getting in live action, but it's like, let's get people's like love back. I know it's TV and I know it's animated, which is not the greatest like jump forward, like the greatest like push, but it's nice to have like a project before the big Superman full introduction. So it's like, okay, we're getting something, and I appreciate that very much.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. You guys keep coming up with really clever names. Shit the duck. Okay. Uh,
It's not even clever.
I don't know. Well, that one's not clever, but Eat Cracker Jack Mother
I
Cracker was pretty clever, I
Ron,
thought.
I agree with that. WB Studios should actually have a real big belly burger. It's good
It
marketing
should.
for DC. Like
Yep.
how I think it was for it was the second to last or the last season of Better Call Saul. They had a real Los Pollos Hermanos, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So that I think would be like have it like be with Burger King, and like they have like a real big belly burger in like New York, LA, and like big like um in like
In
really
the big
really
cities, like in
big
Atlanta and
cities.
Dallas, or
Atlanta,
like
that would
big
make sense because they're
metropolitan
filming down
areas,
there.
Boston, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that would be awesome. Whether it's Burger King or Shake Shack or Wendy's, I think like
Yeah.
partnering with them. Like, I mean, I think Wendy's would be open to it because they just did the SpongeBob collaboration. So like having them, I think would make
Yeah.
sense because they seem like
Typo
open to that.
douche.
But yeah.
Yeah. Oh, Michael's still coming at you in the chat. But anyway, yeah, TC, the League of Assassins was in Batman Begins. They called them the League of Shadows, which I actually personally like that name better, but I might be in the minority there. Now, of course, we do have
Well,
to
in the
talk.
comics, they made it two separate groups, I
They
think.
did?
Like they
Yeah.
like kind of try to make both work, and it just didn't. Like League of Shadows, like it's fine, but League of Assassins is cool.
Yeah, I personally still prefer League of Shadows because I think it was grounded for the world that Nolan was doing. But anyway, I digress. You know what? We got to talk about some other Batman stuff, and of course, I'm talking about your comments, guys, because Jay left us a fantastic comment the other day, which I think you've just been touching upon in the show anyway, because of course, James Gunn yesterday mentioned that it's not true that the Batman 2 script is done. They're still working on it. Matt Reeves still is writing it, and I mean they're set to go into production next year. So we were starting to wonder how long it takes him to actually finish a script because he's had like 3 years now. So to that end, Jay was sent us a comment saying Bruce Wayne is gonna be 90 years old by the time Matt Reeves finishes the Batman 2.
Till
I'm
he's 90.
joking, but
Till he's
Robert
90.
Pattinson is not getting any younger, and he's supposed to be playing a younger version of the character. I think that's a really good point because Robert Pattinson ain't getting younger, and he is supposed to be playing like a year or two Batman, John. So I do wonder, like, like how much. I mean, I'm not saying the movie's gonna get delayed any further, but it's not exactly comforting to know that Matt Reeves still hasn't finished the script.
Yeah.
I feel like he took a lot less time to do the first one. At this point, guys, I remember when he first took the job, and then Ben Affleck, was like, I'm not gonna be Batman anymore. It was what, like maybe a year that he had. Like I don't know, like what, like just finish the script, man. Like it's just Robert Pattinson is getting older. We got to start making these movies. I mean, if they want to do it seems like at this rate we might only get a trilogy because Robert Pattinson will be in his 50s. He'll be like RDJ is today by the time they get to like the fourth potential movie. But that's a good comment from Jay. I just wanted to kind of touch upon that. I think it fit the theme of how both Batman movies are currently sort of struggling with the scripting side, it seems like. Even though the Penguin was fantastic. Fuck the Penguin. Of course, Jay had another comment for us, which I thought was very, very timely because here I'm going to share with you on screen. There was a report, and this is a report because James Gunn said it himself. It's not some unfounded trust me bro thing. James Gunn mentioned, I don't even know if he did that on purpose. I feel like it might have slipped. He said that, we have Lanterns coming out and then we have an unannounced project after that. And that's all he said. He said, there's an unannounced project
Yeah.
that will release after Lanterns and Supergirl. We have no idea what it is, and the internet has been speculating, about what that could
Right.
be. Could it be the Teen Titans movie that
But that
Eddie
was
Maguire is
announced.
writing? But it wasn't announced by James Gunn. This is the other thing I wanted to ask, right? Because Jay says it here, like he said, I might have missed it, but Gunn also mentioned that there wasn't an announced project coming out after Lanterns.
Right.
Sounds like we may get a greenlit announcement very soon. But I wonder if that means it's one of the projects that a trade article said it's confirmed or it's in the works,
Mm-hmm.
or if it's some, because the thing is James Gunn only considers something announced if he announces it or there's an official press release, right? And he has said as much that, until he says it, it's not official for all the legal reasons. They got to dot, their I's and cross their T's, which is why the Kyle Chandler announcement and the Aaron Pierre announcements weren't official until James Gunn finally came out and said it. So I wonder if it's a project that's already the one that we know about, but James Gunn hasn't, given a green light to it. So that's maybe what he's talking about. Or do you think this is truly an unknown that we have no idea it even exists, and we're just gonna get it like a surprise out of nowhere? What do you think this is?
I think we're gonna be maybe like a doubling down on like something that was rumored that wasn't officially announced by James Gunn. I think that makes the most sense. Like as somebody said in the comments, Teen Titans or Sergeant Rock. I think that could work. A Sergeant Rock, that's been like major rumor mill. Teen Titans at least got an exclusive from like Deadline or Variety or whatever.
But we know that
And
she's working on the script, but we don't
yeah,
know how far along it is.
yeah.
Yeah.
So whatever it is, I think it'll be, it's definitely exciting. So that'll definitely be something between like Superman and Supergirl in terms of the movies, and then this, and then we would have Swamp Thing, Brave and the Bold, the Authority, or it'll be a separation of projects like we have Creature Commandos and Lanterns, and then then we have this project, and then it's Waller, Paradise Lost, and Booster Gold. So like whatever it is, I think it's exciting, and I think if I were to take a guess, it's probably a TV show because we've gotten, if we think about it, Teen Titans was a big, like that was like the sixth movie that was like
Right.
kind of confirmed. Meanwhile, we haven't gotten another announcement for a DCU TV show or a mini series. So like we have six movies that were at least five officially announced, but then this extra one. But then
Mm-hmm.
on top of the fact, you have like five officially announced TV shows, and then this other one that's been unannounced. So, because Peacemaker 2 has kind of gotten into that, but like, yeah, it's not.
I mean, if
It's not
you
that, but yeah,
count,
but like I'm in like a whole different
I'm
ball
just
game.
so like for example, if you count everything that James Gunn announced at that event like a year and a half ago as announced, then it can't be Swamp Thing, it can't be Waller, it can't be The Authority, it cannot be any of those other projects that were announced. Basically it came out of James Gunn's mouth. It was announced, right? Even if it's not technically greenlit. So then maybe we're gonna get one of those other characters like, well, what's the one that people have been Plastic Man? Like Plastic Man is one that people have been wanting for a long time. Like that could be some, maybe that happens. Like the James Gunn has been very coy. He's like randomly posted photos over the last few months where he just like does that and then has a mermaid icon, and I'm like, oh,
Hmm.
what are you doing, James? So maybe one of those things, like Question, the
Maybe the
Watcher saying,
Question, yeah.
the Dead Man, I think was one of the images that he
Blue
posted. That
Beetle could
could be
be
that.
another thing. Animal Man, somebody mentioned Dead
But the Blue
Man.
Beetle one was even announced, right? So like I don't know if that
Yeah,
counts as unannounced. So like maybe that doesn't, maybe it's coming out, but it's not the one that's gonna come out after Lanterns. I also
right.
wonder because so far it looks like they're alternating between movies and TV shows. Like, does that make it more likely that after Lanterns we're gonna get a movie, or do you think we're just gonna get a TV show? Like it's possible, I
Yeah,
suppose. There's no rule. They haven't established that that's the way they do things. It just maybe happens to be how things are scheduling out right now. Um, Buster Barnes saying rumored but not announced. Teen Titans, Sergeant Rock, Bane plus Deathstroke, which is very true. That Bane plus Deathstroke thing was just like a Deadline exclusive, right? I think it was Deadline or Hollywood Reporter or Variety, but it wasn't anything James Gunn has ever addressed. So that could be happening. The Deadman animated series is something that, well, it could be possible because he's definitely posted a couple of images of Deadman, so that's possible. The Blue Beetle animated one wasn't announced by him, but wasn't it like an announcement of some event? So I believe that exists in an official capacity already. So I don't know if that counts.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, but I think Kyle's idea might be the best one for me is Zatanna. Like I know we've had rumors that
I mean,
Zatanna might be
God, that
one
would
that
be
they're
amazing.
developing, and
Alexandra
that Zendaya might
Daddario
be right.
would be amazing.
Yeah, I thought Zendaya was good attached potentially. Like that seemed to be the new
Yeah.
the news that I
Okay,
was
like
hearing.
don't
So
cast like oh, they're both like one name characters that start with Z and end with A. Like, all
I'm
right, come
not
on.
saying that. I didn't even make that connection honestly when I said it. I've just seen
I've
reports
seen
that that
Ana de
was
Armas as well. I think she would be
yeah.
good. But yeah, or get Olivia. I think Olivia, the chick in the second season of Reacher, who played Reacher's love interest.
Oh,
Um,
I saw her in a couple other things
she
before
was
that
Zatanna
too.
in Smallville, so it'd be
Yes.
funny if they like got her back again. That would be
Mm-hmm.
kind of amusing.
Yeah. Yep. And then the Watcher saying Spectre, Animal Man, Justice League Dark, Constantine,
Yeah.
Zatanna, Deadman, Bane times Deathstroke, Swamp Thing, Sergeant Rock could all be rated R. Speaking, that's the big headline of the week so far, where James Gunn has said that DC will not shy away from their R rating. And I think those are all really, really good options. And certainly most of those will be rated R. I don't know if all of them will be, but certainly most of them will be. Now, of course, we have to finish off the show today with my favorite topic. Of course, it's in my background. Fuck the Penguin. So speaking of which, let's talk about this clip that HBO put out literally before we went live. We're not going to show you the audio because we don't want to get like clipped by the YouTube gods and the algorithm, but you can find this clip on Instagram, and basically it looks like it's when the Colin Farrell rapped on the set of the Penguin, and so he's not talking in his Penguin voice, he's talking in his own voice with the Irish accent, and you just can't unsee that because it's so weird to me. It doesn't even look like it's coming out of the same man. Like I mean,
Right.
I'm seeing him talk, but I'm like somebody is dubbing him right now because it's so weird. I mean, he's got the flowers. It looks like this was his last day on set, and he talks about how he loved the experience. Um, but he even addresses the fact that hey, the voice and everything. It's like he
The
completely
fucking voice. It's
blended
like,
into it. Yeah,
and I won't miss the fucking
I
voice.
was the
Like,
fucking voice. I'm like, it's
yeah,
just
it just,
yeah,
I'm
it
not
gets me
even gonna
every
attempt
time.
an Irish brogue. I'll leave the Irishness to my future Irish wife if Lenny is gonna, you know, uh, grab me one. But I don't know. I just love to see that. Like, I just want to see him in the top hat. Those. That's all I want to see.
Yeah. Dude, it's just amazing. I just thought this was a good.
I just saw this Daniel Hebling. Oh my God, Oz knows exactly how to do a Colin Farrell voice. That's really funny.
That's perfect. Oh my God, Oz knows exactly how to do a Colin Farrell voice. That is the perfect comment. I'm gonna hit a like on that one. That's a
Yeah,
good comment.
that's a really good comment. I really like that. I mean,
Yes,
it would
I
make sense if
yes.
we get a Sergeant Rock movie that takes place in the
hmm
DCU. We would get GI Robot, by the way.
I don't know
Um,
if Daniel Craig is
but we
interested in
don't know
being
if
part
it's
of a
going to be
franchise,
in the
though. If
DCU.
that is who gets cast. Yeah.
So we don't know if it's actually happening. We don't know if it's going to take place in the DCU, and with that feature GI Robot. So like, since it's like Luca Guarda, blah 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 blah, however you fucking pronounce his name, the director of
Guadagnino?
Challengers and
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Queer,
What
I
was the
think
other
his
movie?
newest one is.
He directed a movie with Daniel Craig, right? Which
Yeah,
played at one of the big
Queer. I
festivals,
think
Queer,
that's
which is the whole reason why I think that rumor started was because he said something about like, I wouldn't mind doing a superhero movie or something like that. And then people were like, oh, Daniel Craig and him, pair them up again and do it in a DC
yeah.
movie. So it's,
So he doesn't seem like the type of guy like I want to be part of a universe. He doesn't
yeah,
seem like that type of filmmaker. Like he does his own thing. He does a lot of
yeah.
weird stuff, and he just kind of does his own thing. So I can imagine like him doing like an Elseworld Sergeant Rock movie, which has been in development since like the 80s. I think like Arnold Schwarzenegger was attached at one point to play Sergeant Rock, which would have been awesome, but it would have been
Yeah.
funny. Like, oh, the all-American Sergeant Rock being sounds like a guy who talks like this. Like, it's I don't know how that would work, but it would be funny, but
Yeah.
not
I mean, The
work.
Watcher has a good idea here, which I think is what we're gonna wrap up on. The idea that it would be interesting if Gunn could actually put Alan Scott, Wonder Woman, Our Man, in a JSA adaptation, and then have GI Robot all in Sergeant Rock if he wants to. So
I wouldn't. Let's not like have too many cooks. Let's not,
yeah.
let's not do like have too many characters. Like maybe a mention, maybe like a cameo from like
Yeah.
one of them. But like, let's not have like just like to halt the entire movie to have like a JSA cameo. I think that might be a bit much.
I think it's also their sort they might already have a JSA in Superman. Like that might be the team that we get to see, right? Like and
Yeah,
they might not be Justice League International, they might be JSA. Like it's very possible that, that's how they differentiate the Justice whatever team exists in the Superman movie versus the Justice League proper that we're gonna get, right, later on. Especially because we've already just gotten a JSA in Black Adam. It would be interesting like how they go about addressing the first superhero team that you see in the new DCU, especially given that we know that that's not going to be like the Justice League that we will eventually get. So, with that said, guys, of course, it's been another great show with lots of news to get into. We're going to be back tomorrow with another show. We're going to be talking about the Batman 2 again, and we've got a bunch of other, James Gunn related stuff that we picked out already that we couldn't make today's show. So if you haven't already, as John is doing for you right there, hit the notification bell. If you haven't subscribed, hit subscribe so that you know when we go live with the new show. We are here 5 days a week with DCU Daily. We are here with Also Curious, usually as well. We had the Also Curious show with Liz yesterday, and we talked a bunch of Marvel news as well. Now, of
yeah,
course,
boy.
tomorrow and the rest of the week, it's all DC. So hit that like button if you enjoyed the show as always, and come back here tomorrow. We're gonna have another whole bunch of news and speculation, fan castings. Join us here on another episode of DCU Daily. Until then, John, it's been a pleasure, and we'll see you next time.